100 years after biological warfare eradicated 99% of the men, women have built utopian societies for themselves while most of the surviving male population live in squalor. During an educational tour into a men's camp, Rada encounters Gera, who kisses her as he's smitten by her beauty. The man also saves her from an awful fate from the Baron, but this forces him to escape his camp. He hides in a moonshine barrel that his grandfather prepared for Baron to smuggle into Two Hills, the eco-town of women. This leads him to accidentally board the shuttle of Yuli, the new keeper of the sea chosen to provide for the women's reproduction. During their trip, Yuli gets drunk with the moonshine and ends up falling off the shuttle, so the other man pretends to be the new keeper. This allows him to experience the luxurious life in Two Hills. The morning after his arrival, Gera is awakened by the community's AI, announcing that he's given his communication ring, which also tracks his health. He heads to the spa, where the ladies pamper his fellow keepers while dozens of beautiful women do their morning exercises outside, amazing him. Gera then joins the others for a massage, but another keeper, Liutzi, mocks his friendliness. Their caretaker, Liuba, scolds the man's rudeness while August happily greets their new companion whom they think is Yuli. Gera gets a massage from Elsa but is too distracted by her beauty, so he excuses himself to find some private relief. However, the system's AI is programmed to alert the others when the men perform on their own, so he gets caught. This leads to the men gathering as Liuba lectures them about how the act of self-love is wasteful. Meanwhile, Rada is nervous about her trial since she took her students to the men's camp, which is considered dangerous. She admits to her friend Iya that the man she encountered kissed her, alarming the other woman. Still, she promises to support Rada. At the men's camp, Gera's grandfather chances upon the real Yuli, who ended up sleeping outside their house. When Yuli confirms that he'd seen Gera, the older man offers to help him. Yuli is then taken to the Baron, who interrogates him about a missing barrel of moonshine that was supposed to arrive in Two Hills with his shuttle. Yuli excuses that he fell out of the vehicle, but Baron questions if someone else was in the vehicle with him. The confused man turns to Gera's grandfather before saying no. Unconvinced, Baron breaks Yuli's finger to get him to confess. Seeing this, Gera's grandfather lies that he accidentally consumed the other barrel, thinking it was water. Baron lets the issue go since the older man is the only one who can make the moonshine. At the trial, Vera, who's appointed as mother of the city, stands with her daughter and one of Rada's students, Mila. She accuses the teacher of forcing her class to approach the primitive men, but Rada's mother Yelena argues that their encounter ended well. Vera insists that it isn't the point, but the judge agrees that no harm was done. Out of options, the scorned mother asks for a break to think things through. Outside, Liuba takes the keepers for a walk when August asks permission to break wind. Liuba permits him before leaving to get some coffee, so the man enters a sealed tube where he lets the gas out. Gira is confused that they can't freely pass wind, and Liutzi argues that it's because they aren't primitive. Unconvinced, the new keeper points out their importance to the community, so they shouldn't be restrained. Liuba then takes the men to the stone altar for Greta Thunberg, an advocate whom their society looks up to. She instructs the men to beg for Greta's forgiveness for their wasteful ways since their mission is to protect Mother Earth. While Liuba prays, Gira discreetly gathers the others and encourages them to go for a swim and a picnic. The others hesitate, so he reminds them that the women need their seeds, so they shouldn't have to follow orders. When one worries that they'll get caught, Gira assures them that they'll just ask Greta for forgiveness again. During this, Yuli gets a haircut at the camp to fit in. Gera's grandfather assures him that he'll help him get to Two Hills during the moonshine delivery next week. Just then, one of the few women who chose to join the camp approaches to bandage Yuli's broken finger. Baron notices this and alerts his bodyguard Giant, since he's the woman's husband. Despite seeing his wife showing interest in Yuli, Giant doesn't care. However, Baron insists that being unable to control his wife will show weakness, so Giant approaches Yuli and challenges him to a slap battle. At Two Hills, the other keepers are amazed as they see the river for the first time. Gera returns to them wearing shorts to swim, but the others are appalled by his hairy legs. August also complains that they didn't bring food for a picnic, so Gera encourages them to forage in the forest or catch fish in the river. The newbie also presents them with a lighter so they can cook what they catch. This horrifies the men, knowing that Gira stole the lighter, given that in just one day the man has committed several primitive primitive sins, Liuzzi yells at him. However, he admits that this rebelliousness excites him, which the others agree to. Meanwhile, Vera speaks to Yelena privately, insisting that if they let her daughter off the hook, more women might attempt to bend their laws. She also implies that this would stain the mother of the city's reputation. This convinces Yelena to change her mind. So when the trial commences, she declares that the situation her daughter placed her class into could have ended awfully. Rada reminds her mother that she didn't force her class to see the camp, but Yelena warns her against getting involved in politics. Realizing that her mother is betraying her to gain Vera's favor, Rada declares that Yelena no longer represents her in this trial. Instead, she will defend herself. She reveals that Mila was the one who insisted on seeing the men's camp, and to convince her to confess, Rada dares her student to swear on an apple. Since the apple symbolizes their society's integrity, Vera tries to keep her daughter from doing so. She lies that Mila is allergic to apples, but Rada makes the mother swear of her daughter's condition to prove this. Vera takes the challenge and bites on the apple, but she chokes a bit when Rada declares that she has a witness to prove her testimony. She calls on the shuttle that they took to the camp and commands the AI to play the surveillance footage from their trip. The footage reveals that Mila insisted on visiting the primitive camp since she wanted an exciting tour. This proves Rada's innocence, but the judge decides that no one is at fault, thus saving Mila of any punishment as well. Suddenly, Iya announces that Rada has kissed a man from the camp, which horrifies everyone since this could have exposed them to diseases from the men. Because of this, the judge sentences her to 80 hours of community service. She's also forced to thank her friend for reporting her mistake, while Iya is awarded social points. This leads Rada to realize that her mother would betray her for political gains while her friend would trade her for social points, which is their currency. At the camp, Yuli is confused as he faces Giant, so the Baron explains that the man's wife showing interest in him might destroy their family. This is why he's called into a slap fight. Unaware of how a fight goes, Yuli allows Giant to slap him. To the man's surprise, however, Yuli merely smiles as he finally understands the point of their battle. He takes his turn and slaps Giant, which instantly knocks him out. Meanwhile, Gira's new friends are amazed by the food that they cooked over a campfire. The newbie also invites him to drink the moonshine that he's been hiding since he left the camp. However, their campfire triggers an alarm which activates a simulated rain. The men get caught, so Liuba berates them for escaping and harming wildlife. As punishment, she plans to take them to the Museum of Patriarchy to remind them of how primitive actions destroyed their world. Once she leaves, a guilt-ridden Gira tries to confess to his new friends. However, they interrupt him and accept his ways, given that it's been the best day of their lives. With this, Gira makes a drink for them to celebrate. However, when he mixes the drink, the AI mistakes his actions as a private activity, so it calls on Liuba again. When Gira defends that he was just mixing, the woman dismisses the alert and leaves. The odd event makes Gira realize that their communication ring is monitoring their actions, hence it mistook what he did earlier. To prove this, he does the same activity with his left hand, which doesn't trigger the alarm. He insists that this means they can do as they please by using their left hands. With that in mind, the men proceed to their rooms for privacy. Despite accidentally switching places, Gira and Yuli find new joy in their positions. Winning the slap battle has Yuli waking up to Giant's wife the next day, having earned respect from the camp. At the same time, Gira enjoys the luxury of being a keeper while relishing his secret freedom. His mood changes, however, when he discovers that his new masseuse is Rada. Recognizing each other shocks them, so Gira quickly tries to convince the woman that he's Yuli. When this fails, the man pretends to be hurt, so Liuba takes him to the infirmary, leaving a suspicious Rada behind. Later, the man joins his friends as they discuss the equipment they prefer for pleasure. When Liuzzi notices Gira looking at one of the women, he accuses him of wanting to be with another human, which this society has deemed immoral. Luckily, Liuba interrupts them since it's time for them to visit the museum. However, the caretaker is busy, so she instructs Elsa and Rada to guide the men. Meanwhile, Yuli has joined Baron's gang as they loot an abandoned store. The eager man goes to do the task immediately, unaware that their leader is still suspicious of him. Baron thinks he's a spy from the other eco-towns, so he instructs his men to interrogate him him before eliminating him tonight. In Two Hills, Vera seeks Yelena's thoughts on a musician's song. The lyrics imply that they have a choice about reproduction, which the mother of the city can't comprehend. Yelena reminds her that the youth experiment on ideas. Yet Vera argues that they're also young but understand what their community requires. Since they still uphold the freedom of speech, Vera orders Yelena to change the singer's mind about her message instead. Because of this, Yelena later approaches Tomochka, a soldier who also coaches their choir. She warns her about harmful musical influences that could threaten Two Hills. At the Museum of Patriarchy, a guide shows Gira and his friends how men used to oppress women. One of the men, Ilya, notices a vacuum cleaner, which looks like the device that collects their seeds. This excites him, so he excuses himself to the restroom where he plans to relieve himself secretly. Carrying on with the tour, the guide tells them that one item is used to strike wives and label them with its mark. However, Gira laughs and points out that the item is merely a carpet beater. Offended, the guide moves them to the next exhibit. As the others follow, Rada corners Gira and warns him that this is his last chance to confess. Still, the man mocks her and leaves, so Rada discreetly calls her grandmother from her ring communicator. Elsewhere, Yuli happily helps the Baron's gang collect food, though when he finds jugs of milk, one man warns him that they're dangerous. When Yuli returns to the store to get more supplies, Baron's right-hand man Kriza scolds his comrade for warning him about the milk since they could have used it against Yuli later. At the museum, Rada points Gera to his grandmother Zoya, who's a known activist for equal rights for men and women. She reveals that the man saved her from the camp, but according to their law, she must surrender him. Zoya dares her to tell on him and earn social points, though she implies that this can also be their little secret. The tour continues with the guide showing them intimate media, calling it a tool for primal lust. After the group moves to the next exhibit, Liuzzi secretly looks into the magazines and takes photos of the pages. Gera catches him, so Liuzzi fears that he'll tell the women. Instead, the newbie urges him to confess to what he did. Meanwhile, Tomochka and her soldiers approach the controversial singer, scolding her for singing about lawlessness. The woman remains unfazed and simply walks away while her fans follow her, leaving Tomochka stunned as she's not used to women not getting intimidated by her. In the evening, Kriza and his accomplices ambush Yuli, but the man remains unhurt even when he breaks a shovel against his head. Defeated, the men admit that Baron thinks he's a spy. Hearing this, Yuli asserts that Baron is evil and unjust, so they shouldn't listen to his orders. When Yuli opens a liquor bottle, Kriza reminds him that they must surrender the drinks to Baron. Yuli asserts that they're risking their lives to gather these supplies, so they should be able to drink as they please. This encourages the others, so Yuli leaves to get more supplies. However, Kriza points out that the man is making them turn on their leader, therefore he's really a spy. With that, he suggests feeding the supposed traitor a can of rotten fish. At Two Hills, the singer continues entertaining her audience when Yelena interrupts her. This time, she takes the woman's bag, where they find a bag of chamomile, calling it a powerful tranquilizer. Zoya steps in, pointing out that chamomile is just used for making tea. She reminds everyone that chamomile calms them while coffee, which they often drink, can make them agitated. Just in time, Vera passes by and turns on Yelena, pointing out that everyone has used chamomile during their youth. She even advocated to make it legal years before, so the so-called contraband isn't something to ruin their evening for. This puts Yelena to shame. Meanwhile, the men return to their lobby, where Liuzzi admits to their friends that he's also attracted to humans. The others mock him for being a hypocrite, but Gira challenges them to admit that they've never fantasized about women. When they refuse to admit this, he asks them to understand their friend. Uplifted, Liuzzi points out that they're all different in their preferences, like in food, so his interest in other humans shouldn't be treated differently. This earns him some respect, but when he mentions being interested in his fellow men, it makes his friends uncomfortable. While waiting for Yuli to return, an enemy gang corners Kriza and the others. Hearing the commotion, Yuli heads out and throws a milk jug at their opponents. The distraction allows him to punch their leader, who ends up fleeing with his gang. At Two Hills, Liuzzi uses his newfound confidence to approach the only woman left at their spa, Rada. He reveals his interest in being with a woman, so he encourages her to spend time with him. This scares Rada, so Gira goes to them and weakly punches Liuzzi in the arm. Unaccustomed to pain, the other man panics, so he escapes. Rada realizes that this is the second time that Gira has defended her, and when the man acknowledges this, he accidentally confirms his identity. Despite this, Rada decides to help the man, so she gives him 30 minutes to escape before she calls on the authorities. Unbeknownst to all of them, Vera and Baron have a secret secret relationship. After their intimate time, the man mentions that one of their keepers of the seed ended up in their camp. With his cover blown, Gira runs away, only to discover that Two Hills is secured with an invisible force field, thus trapping him in a society where he's seen as a primitive animal.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.